If you really want to survive in this world, you have to stop chasing one thing first: being liked. Not tomorrow. Now. You weren't put here to be adorable background noise in other people's stories. You were built to become irreplaceable, to be the one person they cannot move around like a pawn. If Niccolò Machiavelli were alive today, he wouldn't be filming TikToks in his bedroom or begging for brand deals. He wouldn't be posting authentic content 5 times a day for an algorithm that doesn't care if he lives or disappears tomorrow. He'd be invisible, not absent invisible. He wouldn't be the CEO plastered on magazine covers. He'd be the quiet man choosing CEOs, not in front of the camera, but behind it. Not giving TED Talks, writing the script everyone else thinks they're improvising. You'd call it stealth. He'd call it control. Because today, chains aren't made of iron. They're made of perception, data, metrics, and your fear of being forgotten. You're not ruled by force. You're ruled by how much you want to be seen. And if you don't learn how to shape perception, you're not in the game. You are the game. This isn't about becoming evil. It's about survival. 21 psychological rules Machiavelli would live by in a world where visibility is the trap and silence is the real power. You can believe in justice. You can believe in truth. Keep them. But understand this: the world doesn't reward truth. It rewards the ones who understand how truth is perceived. If you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, quietly discarded like you were never there, this isn't just a video for you. This is a wake-up call. Don't follow because this sounds cool. Follow because you're done being manipulated. If you're ready to see the world as it actually is, start now. Say nothing, just listen. Because in every game of power, the one who speaks less is the one no one sees coming. Let them forget your name. Let them talk over you in meetings. Let them share that little smile that says, "He's harmless." Good. That's when the door quietly unlocks. When they stop watching you, you start watching them. In a world addicted to attention, the greatest power sits with the person everyone overlooks. Machiavelli wouldn't chase recognition. He'd wear mediocrity like a cloak. He'd let others scramble for stage time while he maps their habits from the shadows. Let them measure you with lazy eyes. Let them label you. Let them misread you. Because when they drop their guard, you don't explode. You don't rant. You move with precision. Like a shadow, they never notice slowly growing teeth. You've seen this. People reveal the most when they think nobody's paying attention. That's rule 1. Rule 1. Let them underestimate you. Camouflage isn't weakness. It's war paint. In this game, the loudest one loses. Power isn't the guy shouting. Power is the one listening, collecting information, waiting. Machiavelli put it simply: the wise man does at once what the fool does finally. The fool rushes to be respected. The wise man waits to be feared. So the next time you get ignored, don't correct them. The next time they interrupt you, don't over-explain. The next time someone underestimates you, don't flinch. Just smile. Let them talk. Let them think they're winning. Silence isn't surrender. It's scaffolding. And when your moment comes, you won't need to raise your voice. You'll just move. And they'll ask themselves, how did the person we dismissed end up holding all the power? Now, rule 2. Rule 2. Charm is more dangerous than truth. Truth cuts. It's raw. It makes people flinch, rethink, feel uncomfortable. Charm doesn't do that. Charm is silk-wrapped poison. It doesn't challenge you. It seduces you. Machiavelli understood something most people never accept. Most people don't want truth. They want comfort. They want to feel admired. They want to be mirrored. not confronted. So he wouldn't waste time arguing. He wouldn't rush to correct. He'd smile at the right moment, nod at the right time, tilt his head so you feel listened to, while he's already 3 moves ahead. Have you ever been warned about someone but still liked them anyway? That's charm. It creates false safety. It makes you lower your sword while the dagger is already in position behind your back. Machiavelli wouldn't enter a room armed with facts. He'd enter with presence. He wouldn't speak to be right. He'd speak to be remembered. He'd disarm you with a compliment, echo your opinion, let you feel smart, seen, admired. And when your guard falls asleep, he takes everything. This isn't manipulation. This is gravity. People don't follow what improves them. They follow what flatters them. So ask yourself, are they loyal to your truth, or to the version of you that makes them feel important? Stop begging to be understood. Stop trying to prove how pure or honest you are. Become what they want to see on the surface, while you build what they'll never suspect underneath. Charm isn't about being liked. It's about being let in. Once you're inside, you never have to knock again. Rule 3. Turn yourself into a riddle. Clarity makes people comfortable. It tells them exactly where they stand. And the moment they feel safe, they stop paying attention. Ambiguity does the opposite. It makes them lean in. It makes them overthink. It turns a simple smile into a question they can't answer. Machiavelli knew. Power doesn't come from being understood. It comes from being interpreted. Right now, most people think they have you figured out. You've been too consistent, too easy to label, too easy to predict. You weren't born to be defined. You were born to be decoded. Shift your tone. Shift your rhythm. Be warm today. Distant tomorrow. Agree with their values. Then vanish the moment they need reassurance. Not because you have no identity, but because you refuse to be captured. Once they can name you, they think they own you. If they can't label you, they can't aim at you. Ambiguity isn't confusion. It's power. It makes people addicted to your presence, not because they love you, but because they don't understand you. So stop correcting their assumptions. Feed them. Let the wrong version of you live rent-free in their head, while the real you quietly builds, untouched, somewhere they'll never look. You don't need to answer every question. You don't owe explanations to everyone who demands them. Sometimes the most powerful move is to leave the question hanging and just watch who starts to tremble in the silence. Because visibility, in the modern world, is the new vulnerability. Everyone wants to prove they're grinding, documenting every step, showing every routine, broadcasting progress like a live show. But proof is exposure. And exposure invites sabotage. Machiavelli would never show his real blueprint. He'd show a decoy. He wouldn't announce his true vision. He'd share a version of it, carefully edited, strategically incomplete, designed to distract. So ask yourself, what are you revealing right now that nobody actually needs to see? They're tracking more than you think. Your posts, your habits, your schedule, your emotional patterns. Once they trace your rhythm, they can start plotting around it. So you flip the script. You give just enough movement for them to assume they know where you're going. A little launch here, a quote there, an update that sounds deep but reveals nothing. Meanwhile, under the silence, you're building something they'll never see coming. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must sometimes act against loyalty and morality if it protects the state, not out of evil, but out of necessity. Translated to today, appear noble, move in silence, smile softly, strike with precision. You don't need to lie, you just need to withhold. Control the frame, but guard the film. Let them think you're behind, that you're slow, that you're stuck. Let them relax. Let them sleep on your silence. And when your results finally show up, they won't even know which path you took to get there. That's the art of asymmetry. They're shadowboxing ghosts while you walk through walls. Never post the real play. Never let them hear the real music. Let them dance to echoes while you're already composing the next movement in a locked room. Ask yourself, what's one thing you wish you'd never shared with the world? A plan? A weakness? A dream? You don't have to answer out loud. Sometimes restraint says more than revelation. Now, here's another rule. Rule 4. Craft the mask, then crack it on purpose. Perfection doesn't haunt people. It impresses them for a moment, then fades. What really stays with them is the contradiction, the glitch in the image, the one moment that doesn't fit, that they replay over and over because it doesn't make sense. Machiavelli would build a flawless exterior, calm, polished, stoic, confident, controlled, unshakable. He'd become exactly what people admire. And then, once he'd let something else slip, a flash of coldness in the middle of praise, a pause that feels a little too sharp, a comment that's just slightly darker than it should be, not enough to repulse them, just enough to disturb them. Have you ever done that? Shown someone a tiny crack in your mask, just to see who steps closer and who backs away? Because here's the truth. People don't chase perfection. They chase mystery. They're drawn to the shadow behind the light. You don't accidentally break your mask. You fracture it on purpose. Like thunder after stillness, a reminder, there's more to you, and not all of it is gentle. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must appear virtuous but be ready to act contrary to virtue. The key word there is appear. So give them what they crave. The hero, the mentor, the visionary. Then, once in a while, let a controlled flash of chaos bleed through, a sharper look, a colder silence, a single decision that doesn't match the image they built of you. If you time it right, that fracture doesn't weaken your mask. It immortalizes it. You stop being just a person and become a story. A storm that pretended to be the sky. They'll spend months, even years, trying to figure out which version of you was real. Rule 5. Guard your inner map with silence. Words are doors. The more you leave open, the easier it is for people to walk inside and rearrange your mind. Machiavelli didn't talk just to be heard. He talked to protect himself, to conceal the map behind the smile. Because every sentence reveals more than you think. Not just your thoughts, but your fears, doubts, and desires. So, he mastered the art of saying just enough. Silence, for him, had layers. The first layer, protection. In a world that worships oversharing, restraint becomes rebellion. When you speak less, people fill the gaps with their own projections. They assume. They guess. Most of the time, they're wrong. Ever told the truth and watched it get twisted, used against you, or thrown back in your face? Silence doesn't only hide the plan. It protects your core from being dissected, dismissed, or distorted. The second layer of silence is leverage. Machiavelli would walk into a negotiation, say one line, then stop, while everyone else defended, justified, explained, and tried to impress. He sat still. That stillness gave his words weight, because the fewer words you use, the heavier each one becomes. The more you talk, the easier it is for people to get comfortable with you, to read you, to predict you. But when you go quiet, they drown in their own overthinking. True dominance isn't interrupting people. It's letting them keep talking until they reveal everything. The third layer of silence is war. At that level, silence becomes a weapon. They start asking themselves, is he angry? Does he know something? Why isn't he reacting? And in that spiral, they expose all the things you never had to ask about. Machiavelli wouldn't threaten. He'd pause. He'd watch. And in that pause, his enemies would destroy themselves. Silence is not passive. It's strategic restraint. It lets the room burn while you stand there untouched. So say less. Let silence carry tension. Let it ask the questions your mouth doesn't need to. Once you stop explaining yourself, people start guessing, and in their guessing, they hand you the leverage you were disciplined enough not to speak. The most dangerous person in any room isn't the one yelling across the table. It's the one smiling beside you, quiet, calm, unreadable. The one who never told you which side they're on. Machiavelli mastered that role. He didn't pick sides. He painted himself into both. He wouldn't declare loyalty or threaten enemies. He'd agree with your rivals, protect the ones he planned to remove, and stay so composed that nobody ever suspected a thing. Why? Because clarity creates resistance. But uncertainty? Uncertainty puts people to sleep. Have you ever trusted someone simply because they never gave you a reason not to? That's how it works. The moment people think they understand you, they start preparing for you. But when they can't define you, they can't defend against you. So you become the anomaly. Friendly, but unreadable. Kind, but not soft. Supportive, but never fully devoted. You're the calm before the collapse. Machiavelli called it being both the fox and the lion. The fox sees the traps. The lion scares the wolves. But true power is the ability to move between them so seamlessly that by the time people realize which one you are, it's already too late. You praise your rivals. You raise a glass to their victory. You celebrate their rise until they confuse your smile with submission. Then, when the timing is perfect, you act. Not loudly, not cruelly, just precisely. Because power isn't in the attack. It's in the fact that they never even saw the blade. And when the dust settles, no one even knows who to blame. Because the one who whispers is never the one they suspect. So, here's your next principle. Rule 6. Let silence build their illusions. You've been ignored, dismissed, laughed at for staying quiet. They mistook your stillness for surrender. But every second you were watching, learning, recording, you let them speak. You let them reveal their blind spots while assuming you had none. Now they think they know you. They believe you're safe, predictable, perfect. That's when you have them. Because power doesn't announce itself. It waits. And when it moves, it doesn't shout. It changes the air in the room. It's a look, a pause, a silence that says, "You won't survive the version of me you forgot to fear." Machiavelli understood that moment better than anyone. He knew there's a line between waiting and seizing, and once you cross it, there's no return. You stop observing power, you become it, but not the visible kind, not a crown, not a title, not recognition. You become the invisible current under everything, the whisper behind decisions, the silence inside people's confidence, the ghost inside their strategies. You don't need to lead from the front. You lead from behind their assumptions, through loyalty, through trust, through everything they hand you because they think you're one of them. But you're not. You've outgrown the need to be understood. Now you aim to be obeyed without command. And to do that, you'll need new rules. Rule 7. Win through comfort, not confrontation. The cleanest victory is the one they walk into smiling. Machiavelli never stormed castles. He sat at dinner tables, and he toasted to your success. He clapped when you won, and all the while, he was erasing you from your own throne. You don't remove power by force. You remove it through comfort. Let them feel admired. Let them feel irreplaceable. Let them feel like they've already won, because power blinds those who believe they're safe. You don't need to attack their position. You become part of it. You mirror their tone. You echo their confidence. You help them shine until they stop watching the shadows. Then, when their guard is gone, you move not loudly, not brutally, but surgically. Ask yourself, have you ever applauded someone while secretly becoming everything they feared? That's not betrayal. That's precision. Strike too soon, they'll fight. Wait long enough, they'll surrender before you even touch them. They call it trust. You call it timing. And when it's over, they'll say nothing happened, just that something shifted, and the room no longer answers to them. You didn't steal power. They handed it to you because you made them feel safe. And safety, that's the most seductive illusion you'll ever weaponize. Rule 8. Absence is the strongest form of control. The deepest control isn't domination, it's absence. Machiavelli didn't need to shout commands. He offered value quietly, surgically, so that when he finally vanished, the silence screamed louder than any speech. You don't have to chain people. You just have to become something they depend on. Solve problems no one else can. Bring calm where there's chaos. Say the one sentence that breaks the thought loop they've been trapped in for years. Offer stability in a language they thought only disorder could speak. And once they lean on you, step back. Not in anger, not in rejection, just disappear. Now they're not thinking about what you gave. They're haunted by what they lost. You didn't steal anything, they gave it to you, willingly. And now that it's gone, they can't breathe the same way. That's not cruelty. That's leverage. Ask yourself, who still thinks about you every time something reminds them of what you took away by leaving? Absence isn't just a memory, it's a need. It turns into hunger, questions, fantasies. You don't chase people's attention. You let their minds orbit you because they can't stand still without you. This isn't manipulation, it's gravity. They move around you not because you asked, but because your silence has its own pull. Rule 9. Debt is ownership without chains. Most people give to be liked, to be thanked, to feel generous. Machiavelli didn't care for gratitude. He gave to own a piece of you. One favor, one well-timed solution. A small act that makes your life easier. Then he waits not for thanks, not for credit. Just long enough for the balance to shift. Because a favor that isn't repaid turns into guilt, and guilt turns into leverage. You'll try to even the scale not because he asked you to, but because you need to. You'll share information, make introductions, take small risks, call in favors. Tiny moves that feel like loyalty, but they're not. They're interest payments on a debt you never admitted existed. Ask yourself, who are you still saying yes to just because they helped you once? Machiavelli would never demand repayment. He'd just smile, mention the past, tilt his head, and let your discomfort do the work. Suddenly, you're not just helping him, you're protecting your own reflection. You're trying to silence the weight he placed on your back with one single act of generosity. That's ownership without contracts. That's power disguised as kindness. Real loyalty doesn't come from kindness, it comes from complicity, from shared secrets, from invisible lines quietly crossed. Machiavelli never begged for loyalty. He created it, not with speeches or promises, but with small, deliberate moments that made people invest in him. He'd never demand allegiance. He'd whisper, softly, "Tell me what they said, just between us." Or, "Can I trust you with something?" And you'd lean in. You'd tell him. You'd cross a line you didn't even know existed. You do it voluntarily, to feel trusted, to feel chosen. And from that moment on, you belong to him, not because he controls you, but because he knows what you did. Because now, if he goes down, so do you. That's the real trap. He doesn't tie you with chains, he ties you with guilt. You think you're helping him, but you're actually protecting yourself from exposure, from shame, from the weight of your own decision. That's the kind of control that doesn't need reminders or threats. It just exists, quiet, heavy, permanent. This is how power builds kingdoms without banners, not through armies, through whispers, not with orders, with participation. He didn't need to attack alliances. He just needed to make one person question another. A small seed of doubt planted at the perfect moment. He'd never shout, "They betrayed you." He'd murmur, "Are you sure they didn't?" That's all it takes. Doubt doesn't need evidence. It just needs oxygen. And people will do the rest. They'll replay conversations, reinterpret glances, convince themselves that something feels off. And by the time they realize, trust has already rotted from the inside. That's internal sabotage, the most elegant form of power. No fingerprints, no open war. Just quiet decay. Machiavelli didn't destroy groups. He let groups destroy themselves. He didn't need to light the fire. He just left the match near the gasoline. And when it all collapsed, no one remembered his words, only the silence that came before everything fell apart. He also understood something deeper. You don't have to fight people to break them. You just have to see them too clearly. He watched closely. He noticed the twitch in someone's jaw when they spoke about ambition, the hesitation in their eyes when confidence slipped, and when he was sure, he'd drop a single line, perfectly aimed. You're bolder than most people who grew up ignored. I admire that. Not an insult, not quite praise, just a reflection. It lands like a fingerprint on glass, subtle, invisible, impossible to erase. Because when someone feels seen where they've always hidden, they lose their defenses. They confuse exposure for understanding. They confuse vulnerability for connection. That's when you own them not through fear, but through validation. Ask yourself, who have you let close simply because they saw something in you no one else noticed? That's how Machiavelli won. Not by force, but by reflection. People don't surrender to their enemies. They surrender to those who see them too clearly. You don't have to crush someone to control them. Just hold up a mirror long enough, quietly enough, and they'll hand you their soul to make the reflection stop hurting. The most feared person in any room is never the one shouting. It's the one who sits still, quiet, unreadable, the one whose silence weighs more than anyone else's words. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. True power doesn't need motion. It orchestrates it. He never needed to fight. He let others destroy themselves, one whisper at a time. He wouldn't give an order. He'd plant a seed, just a single offhand line. Strange how they always interrupt you. Imagine how things would look if you didn't have to deal with them. Then he'd walk away. No follow-up, no pressure, just space. And that silence, it would grow. It would echo inside their thoughts until they started to believe the idea was their own. Sooner or later, they'd act. They'd remove the obstacle. They'd think it was justice, independence, confidence. But it was never their idea. It was Machiavelli's, rooted quietly in their mind. When chaos finally erupted, everyone blamed the hand that moved, not the voice that never spoke. That's how real control works. It's invisible. The world always blames the executor, never the designer. When the smoke cleared, Machiavelli stood untouched, calm, rational, even admired for keeping the peace while others tore each other apart. You don't have to start a fire. You just need to leave a match beside the gasoline and walk away. In every conversation, the one who speaks least sees the most. Machiavelli didn't interrogate people. He let silence do the questioning. Most people fear silence because silence reveals truth. They'll rush to fill it with explanations, with excuses, with words they can't take back. So he'd say one thing, then nothing. No reaction, no expression, just stillness. And soon, the other person would unravel, over-explaining, revealing, confessing. That's not a dialogue. That's disarmament. Because when you let silence stretch long enough, people expose themselves to escape it. In a world addicted to noise, the quietest man commands the most fear. Because silence triggers imagination, and imagination always makes you bigger, darker, more dangerous than you really are. So don't react. Don't rush to fill space. Let silence build tension until they can't breathe. Predictability, on the other hand, is poison. Once people know your rhythm, they can prepare for it. They can manipulate it. Machiavelli never let anyone script him. He didn't fear being misunderstood. He used it. He'd forgive you one day, then ignore you the next. He'd smile warmly in one meeting, then freeze you with silence in another. Not out of confusion, out of calculation. The goal wasn't chaos. The goal was hesitation. When people can't predict your mood, they stop moving. They overthink every step, every word, every look. They shrink their power just to stay safe around you. That's psychological control. It doesn't shout, it lingers. Fear doesn't come from power itself. It comes from unpredictability, from not knowing who you are today or who you'll become tomorrow. So be consistent in your purpose, but unpredictable in your rhythm, stable in your vision, but fluid in your execution. Because when they can't read your patterns, they stop trying to control you and start adjusting to you instead. That's when you cross the line from influence to domination. True dominance doesn't need applause, recognition, or validation. It doesn't live in the spotlight. It lives in the silence that follows you. Machiavelli didn't chase attention. He became the reference point, the invisible axis everyone else unconsciously revolved around. He was the thought in the back of their minds, the unseen rule they still followed long after he left the room. That's real legacy. Not fame, not fear, but silent obedience. When you reach that level, your absence becomes louder than your presence. People hesitate before acting, not because you're watching, but because they remember how you would have acted. You're no longer a person. You're a standard, a system, a ghost in the machinery. True power doesn't make noise. It doesn't demand attention. It watches. It listens. It builds quietly while everyone else performs. And when it finally moves, the room doesn't just notice it changes. Because by then, it's too late to resist. That's the final rule. Real power doesn't announce itself. It simply arrives and no one ever sees it coming.